Hey y'all, how we doing today? Alright, okay, that was quite enough. Yeah, we still got to workshop the intro. I don't know what we're gonna do about that. He's the same beat as last time. Maybe we got to switch it up a little bit. But welcome to $7.30 with me, your host Asher Webb. Um, got some great stories on the pod. It is Monday, February 23rd, 2026. It's a beautiful, bright, sunny day here in Provo, Utah. We actually got quite a lot of snows last week. It was kind of exciting and fun. So we'll just dive right in. Got a couple good stories today. We're talking about Artemis 2, the U.S.'s mission to the moon. Going to be talking about the iPod and the Walkman a little bit, just a little bit. And then school phone bans, actually. It's kind of an interesting one. Top of that, we got some good movies from this last week. We watched Mission Possible 1, The People We Met on Vacation. And let's just dive right into it. So first story on the deck today. Been seeing a lot of articles about the return of the iPod, the Apple iPod, and kind of other old school tech. And wanted to speak to this a little bit. So, anywhere like I see this a lot on the internet. A lot of talk about like on Reddit about like, oh, I'm gonna get an iPhone, or like a lot of people switching to flip phones. I've seen a ton of that. I actually briefly decided, hey, I'm gonna switch to a flip phone, so I bought one, put my SD or my SIM card in it, got all set up, and I realized I didn't really actually want to be on a flip phone at all. It's kind of miserable. So after about 6 hours, I decided, yeah, we're not doing that. But regardless, a lot of people are really kind of getting into like old tech. I've seen a lot of people showing up on campus with like headphones with the kind of funny orange foam, the Walkman headphones. I don't know, it's kind of interesting to see. It begs the question, like, we have so many great technological instruments in our day. Why are people going back to the iPod of all things? It was slow. You could hold like 6 songs on there. I don't know, what's kind of the motivation there? And I've been thinking about this for a little bit because I've had a few different times where I'm like, oh, maybe I should get a Walkman, or like, oh, maybe I should get like an old CRT TV. That was another big one, huge kind of buzz last year, where like cathode ray tube TVs were jumping in popularity and price. People were paying like hundreds of dollars online for the super old like box TV that your mom had, you play like Mario Kart on that, and it was like super fuzzy, and you watch cartoons and you could barely see what's going on. But anyway, super desirable apparently for gaming. And here's what I've deducted about all these different kind of retro tech trends is that we've reached kind of a point of in consumer technology where like new tech is it's we're kind of leveling out as far as capability goes. If you look at like the jump from the first iPhone to like the iPhone 5 as far as cameras or speed or like the apps you could run on it go, it's a pretty big jump. Even just going to the smartphone was a huge jump in capability. And nowadays, like you look at new iPhone releases and it's like the same thing as last time, just with, a different, like they move the cameras around a little bit. There's not, there's not a lot of crazy new consumer tech coming. There's a lot of new apps and things, but the technology itself, I think we're kind of reaching an upper limit. And on top of that, I think like the new advancements that are made are minute and sometimes uninteresting, right? Like going from like a 70 megapixel phone camera to 100 megapixel. Like nobody's, I don't think everybody really cares too much about that. And so I think as society, we're hitting kind of a pivot point where we're less interested in capability with our technology and more interested in the experience. And this is kind of an interesting shift because I don't think a lot of companies have actually noticed this or capitalized on it. So I think about like when I have my phone, very capable, does a lot of cool things. I'm also into photography, and I have my cameras. And my photography life and my phone life are very different, right? My phone just kind of does what I need to, but for cameras, I kind of buy older cameras because they're interesting to me. There's kind of an experience there to shoot with them. So right now, I'm rocking the Canon 1D Mark II. It's released in 2005, I believe. double check this. Canon 1D Mark II. 2004. Yeah, my bad. And and it's like not a great camera compared to even like my phone, but it's fun to shoot with. Um, and I think for a lot of consumers, that's kind of the interest is tech that's kind of fun to use and the kind of the experience of using it is really what attracts people. So, and this is interesting because I don't think companies have really like clued into this. Like, I don't think any companies that's making phones is really kind of catering to this. Most consumer tech is still focused on features and capability. There is one company though that I've noticed that actually is kind of nailing this, and that's Fujifilm. So for those of you thinking, oh, Fujifilm, they make film. Yeah, they do. Super, super old company. They're a camera company from back in the film day, but now they're making digital cameras and they're crushing it. Everybody loves Fujifilm cameras because like they're fun, they're cool, and they kind of nail this whole experience thing. So a lot of cameras released today are focused on kind of capability, right? So when Canon releases a new camera, their big focus is like, oh, we got a new global shutter, or oh, new frame rate. Fujifilm releases cameras that are fun to use. Good example of this is their GFX 100 RF. It's their most recent camera, or one of their more recent releases. I think their most recent medium format release. And this camera is very interesting because it has a huge sensor on it, like really, really big sensor. And typically, it's been pretty typical to reserve those big sensors for cameras that are really capable, like used for like professional photography. Kind of the other big competitor in the medium format space is Hasselblad, selling their cameras at like 35 grand a piece, right? So used for like studio work, making billboards, kind of really intense stuff. And but for the GFX 100 that Fujifilm recently released, they put it into like a rangefinder format. So it only has like a couple lens choices. It doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles and buttons and dials. It functions like an old film rangefinder from like the 50s, 60s, 70s. And you'd think like, why would you put such a capable sensor, put so much tech into kind of like a camera that can't do much? And yet the GFX 100 has been hugely popular. It's been a big fan favorite for this exact reason, that it's a camera focused on the experience of shooting photography, and less focused on kind of the capability. Despite that, the GFX 100 is just an absolute monster. Yeah, you got to look up some of these like example pictures. They're pretty cool. You can just keep zooming in. Anyway, kind of super fun. Kind of a neat little camera they're doing. But yeah, it's interesting though. Like other companies, even camera companies, just haven't really picked up on this. Like Canon, Sony are still very much in kind of a rat race for the most capable sensors or the fastest shooting and stuff. With phones, you have like Nothing, which makes kind of an interesting looking smartphone, but ultimately it's just another phone. And nobody's really kind of catering to this kind of experience with technology side of things. And I think it's a huge market opportunity for any company that's interested in capitalizing, especially with the younger generation. That's kind of, we're digital natives, where new tech is kind of uninteresting at this point. So yeah, kind of big story there. If any of you own a tech company, this is your signal to go make cool experience focused tech for the people. Okay, next on the docket, we have the Artemis 2 launch. So for those of you that didn't know, I didn't know this until recently, but apparently we're going back to the moon, which is sick. Super, super stoked about that. Let's get a little... Yeah, there we go. Going to the moon. Let's go. Yeah, I didn't even know this. So the plan is that there's the first mission is just going to be an orbit around the moon. We're not actually going to land, but we're going to do a little victory lap and then come back. And then the second mission, which is further down the road, will be actually be landing on the moon again, taking yet another giant leap for mankind, which is cool. I don't know a lot of the motivations for going back to the moon. If I'm being frank, I think it's exciting. I think it's cool, but I don't know what there is scientifically out there. But I think it's more of kind of like a we're trying to go back to the 60s and revitalize our kind of engineering and our workforces to, for kind of almost like a hype move as a country. That's how I see it. Anyway, there was plans to get the first launch, make that happen. Actually, just a couple weeks ago, plan was to launch off, fly around the moon, but there was a little helium leakage, kind of a classic blunder. It's just kind of embarrassing, right? Like leaking helium all over the place. Really, this is third grade. I'm just kidding. I've actually worked with hydrogen, like a hydrogen pump system for moving hydrogen gas around. And wouldn't you believe it? It's the smallest element on Earth. And, so that crap's like hard to keep contained. That thing was always leaking. Helium, second smallest element on the Earth, also pretty hard to contain. So it's not terribly surprising that, the point of failure for this launch was helium leakage. It is unfortunate. And then the thing that's really unfortunate about this is that the window for these launches happens only, once every 4-ish weeks. So they need to be totally ready to go for their next potential launch. Looking at kind of reports, it's looking like April 1st is the goal for the next launch. We'll see if they hit that. Hopefully they do. I would love to, let's see, subsequent launch windows in early April. Yeah, April 3rd to 6th, potentially April 30th again. So we'll see. But I'm really excited to see kind of what happens here. I think this is an exciting time for the U.S. space program. I don't know if this is maybe the best time to be launching stuff into space, given all the other nonsense going on. But no less, like, I'm excited. I think it's cool. So we'll see. Hopefully get some cool pictures of the moon. Hopefully we can get the launch going soon. There's not really a takeaway there. I guess don't leak your helium. I don't know. Don't be that guy. All right. And last but not least, I read a pretty cool little article. It was an NPR News about a school phone ban in Jefferson County, Kentucky. So, there's been a few articles. This has been going around a lot. There's a lot of talk about social media bans, phone bans in school. It sounds like in Kentucky, public schools ban phones, kind of statewide. And I've heard kind of some different debate as to kind of the efficacy of banning phones or banning social media for young people. People argue like, hey, this is bad and destructive and distracting for kids. Let's ban it, get it out of here. I've also heard people say, hey, like, we can't just ban everything that's bad. And I kind of agree with both. So I wanted to weigh in on this a little bit, give my thoughts on the matter. But first, we can kind of go through the details, give you some more context for how they're actually implementing this. So in this school, this was in Jefferson County, Kentucky. It was at the Academy at Shawnee where they did the article, and they interviewed some of the administrative staff, some of the students, teachers. So firstly, the way that they do these bans is they have their students bring their phones and they lock them in these little Yonder pouches, YONDR pouches at the beginning of the day, and then at the end of the day, they can take their phone out. And the goal is the pouch just kind of like silence and keeps the phone out of the way, not distracting, which, I think that's a pretty good way of doing that. I think that's reasonable. But then they kind of went into how it's actually going. So talked about students who, there's a few different hacks that the students are pulling, which I think is funny and I think is to be expected. All right, so the first one is that kids will bring 2 phones. They'll have one in the back pocket and then like the one that they slip into the pouch, and then they have an extra phone during class. The other is there's actually kids will bring like multiple phones from home. They bring like all their parents' old phones, and then they all pass them around. So everybody has a dummy phone, and then they can keep their phones in their pockets, which to me is funny because it reports later that most of the time students are scared to bring out their phones because they know that that's against the rules. And so even if they have their phone with them all day, they won't bring them out, which I think is pretty funny. So that's kind of maybe what's going wrong. But then they did some interviews with the students talking about if they think it's worthwhile, if they think it's productive. And a lot of students responded that it was helpful, that students were more productive, more engaged during class, goofing off less. Um, the librarian talked about how he started a garden, which is rad. So I think overall, kind of a net benefit for the experience for students. Now the question is like, oh, is this really like a good practice? And here's my thoughts. I think it is. I think it's good for us to kind of help students and kids and young people learn good digital habits. So I have a daughter, and thinking about her, I don't, I want to set her up for success using tech because she's going to be surrounded by computers, phones, laptops, video games, yada yada, all her life. And I want her to have good digital habits that are safe, that are healthy. And I think the best way to do that is kind of with training wheels. So I think these policies can be effective training wheels for young people to learn good digital habits, but they shouldn't really be the end all be all. So when I think about my daughter, I think, we're going to introduce her to screens, to TV slowly, and just kind of here and there a little bit at a time, and help her recognize and learn how to, work with technology safely and in healthy ways. But we're not just going to let her run free. We're not just going to let her go crazy, but we're also not just going to keep her hidden from it. Like, I think everybody knows that one kid whose mom like never let him play video games until he was like 15. And, and then the second he discovered that video games exist, he's like completely addicted. Like, yeah, you got games on your phone. Can I have a turn? Everybody knows one of those guys. That's not what you want for your kid. But at the same time, we also know kids who are just like, parents never pump the brakes on the video games, and that's their whole life. And that's not great either. So I think these policies are a good idea, especially for teens, for young people. I think it's wise to kind of, maybe not wholly ban social media, but have some limiting factors that can act as training wheels and help kids learn good habits. Even me, like I could use some training wheels, right? So like last night, I don't have Instagram or anything on my phone. I try to stay off of social medias too much. And in particular, things like Facebook, Instagram, I don't have them downloaded on my phone, but every once in a while I'll download them and just kind of like pop on to see what's new in the lives of my friends, right? So last night I did this, logged into Instagram, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do like 6 minutes. I'm going to be, going to be in and out, see what's new with my friends, and be on my way. Like a half hour goes by. I'm not like, my friends are nowhere to be seen in my feed at this point. It's just a bunch of random people on the internet. I'm like, what the heck? So like, if me, big old mature 26-year-old can't handle myself on social media wisely, like I think we need to be thoughtful about how we treat kids and help them learn good habits. So I guess the big story here is maybe I need some training wheels on my social media use. Maybe we got to look into that. Maybe I'll do that, give it a try, and report back how it goes. Okay, those were kind of the news stories that I thought were pretty interesting. For the last little bit, we got news in my life. So I mean, this has been a pretty exciting week for me here in Utah. We've had like the driest winter I've ever seen. There's been like half a snow. I wouldn't even call it a snow because nothing stuck in December. There was like a little flurry and then it was over. But last week we had our first big snow. It was crazy. So Wednesday morning, me and my wife went out for a run in the morning, jog, and it was a little bit wet on the ground. Looked like maybe it had rained, but it was very clear out. So I head off to school, come out of class at 1 p.m., and it is a winter wonderland. There were like 3 inches of snow on the ground. It was blizzarding like crazy. I was like, what the heck? So that was exciting. That was fun. I'll be honest, I don't love snow after December. I'm not like the hugest fan, but here in Utah, we need it really badly. We really don't have a watershed, so we kind of desperately need some snow. So I think it's really good that we're getting snow. And then on top of that, most of it melted in the last couple days, so I don't mind that. What I don't like is when it snows a ton in January and February, and it's all like gray and nasty out, and just makes you depressed. Not a big fan of that. Anyway, so excited about the snow. It looks like we might get some rain later this week. We'll see. This week in the movies, we watched Mission Impossible 1 with our friends and the people we met on vacation. So Mission Impossible 1 is pretty old. I've never seen any of the Mission Impossible movies. I have no context for them. And I'll be honest, like, it was kind of a weird movie. Like, it was good and exciting and thrilling, but like equally met with some kind of weirdness. Like, firstly, everybody dies in the first little bit, so that's kind of sad. And then this like old guy, his wife, who's some, like, maybe, I don't know, Russian lady, is like, who's super young, and starts hitting on sweet Tom Cruise. And I don't know, it's just weird. Kind of weirded me out. In the end, of course, the good guys win. You get to another mission. Yay, but I don't know. Mission Impossible 2 has to kind of show me something for me to buy in. I'm not a believer yet. And then the people we met on vacation, that's a new movie. It came out, I think, this year. So my wife heard about it from some friends, and we had some friends over to watch it. And I'll be honest, I didn't love it. I was not super impressed. Just not really my thing. I think, like, there are some cute parts to it, right? Like the friends turn, and they love each other and all that. But I think for me, what was really hard was it kind of sold like this really strong message of like, oh, just go vacation and have fun, and like commitment's dumb, and it really leaned into that with the main character, the gal, and then right at the end, she was like, oh, like, it is good to settle down with people. And I think that's a good message. But by the time she kind of came around to that, like, oh, it's good to sacrifice some of the fun, crazy life for, a life of meaning with a significant other. It was too far gone. Like, I couldn't buy into any of it, because just the whole movie was so like, oh, let's go run around and have fun, and life is about fun. I don't know. There are also kind of weird scenes. The whole like lake scene, with the strangers that they met. Anyway, maybe go see it. Maybe, if you like chick flicks, if that's your thing, you can go watch it. But I was not a big fan. Maybe like 5 or 6 out of 10. Not great. Oh, whoopsies, my bad. Preemptive there. So, anyway. That's all I got for you guys today. If you have any exciting stories you want to hear, things you want me to talk about, things going on in your life, hit me up, drop it in the comments below. If you want to be on the pod, shoot me a message. Let's do it. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys later. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah. I will see you on the flip side.